Hello everyone, it's TechVlogTime. Now today Phanteks finally showed the finished version of perhaps the most beautiful case design available. So after the Mini-ITX Enthoo Evolv, people have been begging them for an ATX and an ITX version, and it's the ITX version that they kind of showed today. Now the original Enthoo Evolv was a full aluminum shell around the steel frame, and I kind of expected the same for the ITX and the ATX versions, and so it goes without saying that I was pretty disappointed when they showed that the new versions were made from plastic and steel. Until today, that is. So the Enthoo Evolv ITX is only 65 euros, which is exactly half of what the original aluminum version is. And that makes it really easy to forgive Phanteks for pretty much any plastic they used. Today though, we're looking at the Windows version, which is a whopping €5 more, so you really can't do it yourself for that. So let's start by looking around the exterior. Now Phanteks continued the futuristic but also industrial yet elegant design, although having 3 PCI slots less and some radiator room is also missing. This ITX version kind of looks like the original's fat little brother. The front panel is still a single panel which you can easily pull off from the front to access the dust filter. There's no room for optical drives or fan controllers here, and you still get the same LED bar in the bottom, but now the I/O is on the top of the front instead of on the right. You get a dual USB 3, audio in and out, so microphone and headphone, and a little reset button next to it. Now behind the front panel and the dust filter there's a single 200mm fan, but you can replace it with dual 120s or 140s or radiator versions of those if you so desire. Moving to the top, you can see that it's a completely blank piece of steel with just a large power button on it. Now this isn't great for people who like stacking stuff on top of their PC or for people who have it high up on a desk, but stacking stuff would kind of damage the paint job anyway, so I get why they did it. One of the cool things in the top though is the removable fan mount, so you can install your fans or your radiators outside of the case where you have a lot of room and then just slide the entire assembly back in. It's also off-centered, so you get plenty of ram clearance up to 7.5 centimeters if you go with a 120mm fan. So even the thickest radiators are no problem, and they support 280 and smaller versions. The sides of the case are also completely blank. Now that's of course except for the gorgeous vents in the top, and while this approach kind of limits the airflow, it also really looks good this way. For people who like windows, you get a giant one on the left side, and of course for €5 it's a lot cheaper than anything you can possibly do yourself. It also looks really good, but Phanteks windows kind of tend to scratch. I don't know if they fixed it with this one. I'll have to wait for my full review to find out. Now Phanteks did away with the hinged door design of the original and they went back to the older style slide-on doors, and that's a bit of a shame because not only is it less convenient and you have to sit on it to close it and stuff like that, but you also no longer get the cloth strips around the edges to dampen noise and vibrations. So that's a bit of a shame, but then again it's, you know, €65, so you can't really complain at that price. Now moving to the back of the case, we see that it's pretty much all mesh, so even the cable routing side is ventilated. You get only 2 expansion slots because it is ITX, and the power supply, so it's quite a bit over to the right, so you have a bunch of room to stash cables behind it. The entire side panel has at least 28mm of cable management room, which is incredible for a case this size and this price. There are a few things though that I noticed that I don't like here, and so while the fan is still mounted on a 120 or 140mm rail, the fan is also completely missing. But that's not what frustrates me the most, because here's the next thing. Now Phanteks, they're quite big on modding their stuff and having people go completely custom with it. And so with all their other cases they use screws, and with this one you can see rivets from the back, and you'll also see it from the side later on, but most things are still easily removable. Another cool thing we can see from the side is that the dust filter is still present, something you don't get with a lot of cases at this price range. Easy to remove with a nice handle on the back of it. And you know, it is lifted off of the ground, but I wouldn't really put this case on a carpet. It's kind of something you put on a desk to show off. Now opening the case up, we can see that like the outside, the inside is incredibly clean, and there's a cover over the power supply, there's one over the piece where your power cables go for the graphics card, the hard drive cage is covered, Now there is a little cutout for showing off what type of power supply you like. I would have preferred that completely blank as well. But the CPU cutout though, I like that one. It's pretty much the size of an ITX board, maybe 2 centimeters smaller on each side. So you can put small cables through the back of the motherboard to make everything really clean. And for the bigger cables like the 24-pin, the 8-pin, your SATA cables, you get these giant rubber grommeted holes. Again, something you don't often see on a case this price, especially with all the other stuff in mind as well. Now, one of the odd bits with this case is the GPU cover. So this little thing can house an SSD or a hard drive on top, but more importantly, it hides the power connectors on your graphics card. Now, it is toolless, it is hinged, so unless you have a really tall GPU with cables sticking out quite far, you won't really have any issues here, and it will make everything just look a little bit better when you don't have really fancy cables. And so Phanteks kind of thought about anything with this case really, and so they kept the price really low, but they still make sure that you can't do an ugly build in this case. And seriously, if you can do an ugly build in this case, you should probably get a price for it, because it looks very easy to work in. Now, a little bit of an issue that I see here is, the graphics card is going to sit right against the bottom metal bit of the case, and so while it is completely vented and there's also a giant hole below the cover there for more cables and everything, the only air it's going to get is from that front fan, because it is going to be blanked off by the power supply, which is fan down, and if you put the power supply fan up, it's going to compete with your graphics card for air. I don't really see that being a problem, especially if you go with a blower type card. Now, moving to the other side of the motherboard tray, we see another drop and lock system. So like the one on the graphics card blank, you have another one of those drop and lock systems for SSD installation on the back. You can also put 2 hard drives in the bottom using those cool flappy wing hard drive caddies that I really liked in the Enthoo Pro, and so why change it if it's good anyway, right? And so if hard drives, if you don't like hard drives, you can also just completely take this out and you can put a pump or a reservoir in its place. You can also do that on top, by the way. These hard drives as well are cooled by the 200mm fan in the front, but as I said, you can also switch to dual 140s for even more airflow. Now, something that's pretty hard to do with a CPU cutout this big are zip tie hooks. So you don't really get a lot of them, but you do get 2 of these Velcro straps, which, they're amazing for cable management. Fractal also does them now, and I think every case manufacturer should have them because they're the easiest thing ever when you're doing cable management. Also, something you can see is that the entire front section is extruded, so you have even more room for cable management, and you already had 28mm. And then the power supply, that also sits further to the back, so that's again even more room, probably 4 or 5 centimeters of cable stashing room right there. So I don't really see cable management being an issue with this case. Also, because you do have a buttload of room really, you can also put a PWM hub on the back, even with a plastic cover like they show in their press pictures, and it will all be fine, but it doesn't come with the PWM hub because, let's face it, it is a €65 case. Now, looking at the bottom, you see we have rubber feet for our power supply. You can fit longer units as well, so all of that shouldn't really be an issue. So guys, it's time for a conclusion, which is a bit difficult because I haven't actually had the case in my hands myself, which is why this is a hands-off review. I'm hoping this is going to become a thing or something, because I like doing reviews, but I don't always have the stuff around, so I can't do all the reviews that I'd like to do. And yeah, I think overall, I'm not going to give it awards, but I think this case looks really cool. I would even go as far as saying it's the new Prodigy. I don't know if all of you know about the Prodigy, how they kind of turned ITX into a cool rage. Really, I kind of became part of that whole thing as well. So I would say this is like the new Prodigy. It's amazing. Value for money wise, 65 or 70 euros for an ITX case with all the features you could possibly want in a computer. That's amazing. And so yeah, hats off to Phanteks, and I really hope they do more cases like this. Guys, if you like the video, press the like button, subscribe for more videos, even though it's been a bit of a while. I want to start doing more videos again. And thank you all very much for watching.